but we're gonna look at some techniques to help loosen the rotator cuff, get down to the capsule level, and deal with some of those issues, okay? Okay, so this is the first technique that I like to use. We do it like in a spectrum, so we're gonna look at all the ranges of motion. And basically, this technique is to fatigue all of the muscles of the rotator cuff that are holding that capsule in place. And we're gonna try to get the client to control all the movements really smoothly, thereby fatiguing everything and get down to that capsule level. At certain points, they'll feel a really intense stretch inside. It's totally okay. Just keep in touch with them. You don't want them obviously in any pain, but this means that you don't have to work so hard later. It's a really great precursor to really specific work. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a towel. I'm gonna hold onto their arm to get slidey, and I want something between me and her because oftentimes you have to hold for so long that it kind of cuts off their circulation, so that's not the greatest. So I'm gonna lean back. It's quite a lot of pressure actually, and I'm gripping above the wrist bone, so I'm not distracting there. And we're gonna get a nice distraction. I've got a lot of weight on her arm at this point. Take a nice deep breath in for me. When she inhales, I should feel the tissues tighten, and then exhale. Okay, and then what I want you to do is I want you to pull your shoulder into the cuff very slowly with control. Good, and I can feel her pull in. Great. Now what I want you to do is hold it there, and then I want you to let it go out of the cuff really, really slowly with control to the very end range you can. Go ahead. Let it go. Good. And let it fully distract out of the cavity. Good. And then pull it in again. Good. And she's getting better at it. So this next release of the contraction should be even better, and then let it go with control. That's fantastic. And so then we would just move through every single range of motion. It takes a really long time to do, but essentially we would go to here, to here, to here. And so we're getting each sort of dynamic piece of that contraction, okay? Okay, so the next thing is where is that movement coming from? We talked a little bit online about how some of the tissues can get stuck up here at the top of the shoulder, and they'll get a pinching feeling because the scapula is moving and the bone isn't necessarily rotating down. The GH isn't really moving the way it should. When your arm goes up, the head of the bone has to move down. And so some people are accommodating the movement by moving the scapula because the actual ball and socket is not moving properly. So in this scenario, keep in mind she's not limited. We're going to take her into that place right there, and then I'm going to stabilize her scap. And when I press down, you can see how it affects the movement of her arm. I'm exaggerating it. But so now I've stabilized it, and so her scapula can't move if I move her arm, which is how somebody with frozen shoulder would approximate that movement. So I'm holding the scap in place, and I'm going to take her to her end range, which we'll say is right there. At that point, she has a leathery end feel of that movement. We're hitting tissue. And then I'm going to tap her arm and tell her, go ahead and push back into me. Good. And so I am now pushing into her arm and holding the scap in place from the side. And actually on her, you can even feel it stretching further, right? And we're able to get her arm further back. What essentially that's doing is almost forcing that joint to rotate down. You need a nice stretch into this area. As she gets better at the movement and we're able to get her further back, I would start to work on getting her straighter into that position. And so I would start to correct the movement, not just as a down glide this way, but also keeping the arm stable and straight. Is that okay? So this is another way to do the thing that I just showed you. For a lot of people, this is much more intense, and it gets, for whatever reason, better results sometimes. So I would pull her into whatever she can do. I mean, each client's going to be different. If she's here, and then I think because her shoulder feels more stable in this position, I'm going to tap to let her know the direction she's going to push, and I'm going to have her push down into there. Make sure she's breathing. Deep breath in, and then deep breath out. Deep breath in, and deep breath out. And we're just going to continue to grade through that until we feel that she's gotten enough range of